For many out there, it's not just that you want to go and get a good drink while you're at home. You don't want to keep having the same drink. The spice of life, if you will, is to go and have a variety of things so that you never become bored with some of your favorite drinks. But going and heading to a place like Starbucks or a coffee shop in general in order to get a fancy drink isn't palatable either. So why not go and make those coffee shop drinks at your own home? Allow us to show you 6 easy cafe-style drink recipes. 6. Cafeole. In France, equal parts of steamed milk and strong hot coffee are combined to make the perfect mellow beverage known as Cafeole. Prepare this easy recipe at home and serve it at a traditional French breakfast with flaky croissants or an after-brunch coffee with a single square of dark chocolate. Your guests will think they've transported to a sidewalk cafe in Paris. This recipe makes 1 serving, but the proportions can be increased for multiple cups of this gentle pick-me-up. In Spain, this identical drink is known as café con leche, while Germans call it Milchkaffee. Vegans need not feel left out of this Cafeole recipe. For those who like to eat their coffee for dessert, don't miss this Cafeole crème brûlée. 5. Pour over coffee. Pour over coffee is a simple brewing method that produces a rich, flavorful cup of coffee. If you're the type who wants to be able to say, "Wow, that's great coffee," every morning, then it's definitely the brewing process to pursue. To make pour-over coffee, you will need a couple of specific tools. Most important is a pour-over coffee brewer. There are 2 basic styles: a drip cone that sits on top of any cup or carafe, and an all-in-one device like the popular Chemex brand that includes the dripper and carafe. Some brewers require a paper filter, while metal drippers generally do not. The other key piece of gear you need is a gooseneck kettle. Smaller than the average tea kettle, the long neck is curved and the spout is very thin, allowing precise control over the flow of water. With pour-over coffee, precision is essential. It's best to have a digital kitchen scale and timer. Your stove or phone will do, to ensure accurate measurements and brewing time. A thermometer will also help you get the water to the perfect brewing temperature. Some gooseneck kettles have a built-in thermometer, and the upgrade is worth it. With these items in the kitchen, along with your favorite whole bean coffee and trusted coffee grinder, you can brew a perfect cup of coffee every time. The process is not difficult, and you can even pull it off right away in the morning while you're still groggy. The measurements in this recipe produce a 10-ounce cup of coffee. It will fill the average 12-ounce American coffee cup with enough headspace to avoid an overflow or spills. You can adjust it for smaller cups or brew an entire carafe by decreasing or increasing the coffee and water while keeping the ratio intact. Additionally, use these measurements as a guideline. They produce a really nice cup from medium roast coffee. With different beans and roasts, or depending on your personal taste, adjustments should be made. Experiment with the ratio, grind size, water temperature, and brewing time to find your ideal match, then repeat it. 4. Cuban coffee. Cuban coffee is sweet, rich, and delicious. Traditionally, it's served after dinner, and there's no need for dessert when you're sharing this beverage with family and friends. It requires a special technique that creates shots of espresso with a thick layer of foamy crema on top. Unlike other espresso drinks, the crema is created with sugar, not milk, and you don't need to have an expensive espresso machine in the kitchen to make it. To make Cuban coffee, a 6-cup or 9-cup stovetop espresso maker or mocha pot works best. Brewing the coffee is easy, and fine ground Cuban coffee makes it authentic. Freshly ground coffee beans work just as well. There are a couple of tricks to transforming sugar into the perfect crema, and it does take practice. First, watch the pot and use the first tablespoon or so of coffee that's brewed. It's concentrated and almost like coffee sludge, ideal for whisking with sugar to create the thick paste known as espuma or espumita. To get the desired consistency, you need to whip the mix for a couple of minutes. It takes patience and muscle, but the resulting coffee is worth it. 3. Perfect cappuccino. A light foamy cappuccino is a favorite drink for many coffee lovers. Once you acquire 2 basic barista skills, pulling shots and foaming milk, you can learn how to make a cappuccino yourself. A cappuccino is an Italian coffee drink that is traditionally prepared with equal parts double espresso, steamed milk, and steamed milk foam on top. Cream may be used instead of milk. It is typically smaller in volume than a latte and has a thicker layer of microfoam. Espresso is typically made with dark roast coffee and ground finely. In Italian, cappuccino means little cap, which aptly describes the head of foam milk that sits atop the drink's espresso base. According to history, it also allegedly derives from the dress of the Capuchin order of monks. With their iconic brown hooded colls and shaved heads, Capuchin monks are a pretty close human resemblance to the ring of the crema and white foam that tops the classic beverage. Microfoam is a frothed, steamed milk in which the bubbles are so small and numerous that they are unseen but make the milk lighter and thicker. When the espresso is poured correctly, the microfoam will remain partly on top of the mug, as well as mix well with the rest of the cappuccino. A cappuccino is usually made using an espresso machine. The double espresso is poured into the bottom of the cup, followed by a similar amount of hot milk, which is prepared by heating and texturing the milk using the espresso machine's steam wand. The top third of the drink consists of milk foam, which can be decorated with art with the same milk or simply sprinkled with cinnamon or cocoa powder. 2. Caf Noir. Caf Noir is a delicious staple of New Orleans cuisine. Although less famous than gumbo or étouffée, the spiced beverage is worth a trip to the city itself, as its fragrant aroma and warming flavor make it a delightful break alongside a hot serving of crispy and sugary baguettes. There's no one without the other. If you are a coffee enthusiast, this is a recipe for you. Easy and quick to make, this could become your new go-to coffee as it's milder than your average cup of joe and will energize you without the strong buzz of an espresso. The addition of chicory, an ingredient made from the dried, roasted roots of a bitter perennial herb, is what makes this coffee so distinctive. Originally from Europe, chicory plants are now common in Australia, North America, and Asia. Some varieties are used for cooking by using the leaves as a leafy green, and some others are grown to use the dried and ground roots for adding into other recipes, like our coffee. Chicory is of common usage in times of coffee scarcity, by steeping the root in hot water, producing a flavorful dark and nutty beverage with toasty chocolate caramel notes. The tradition held even when coffee became easily found. Nowadays, the average ratio of chicory to coffee for Caf Noir is 60-40, a lighter version of a standard black coffee. For this recipe, you'll need your favorite drip coffee, chicory, and sugar to taste if you're used to adding sugar into your hot beverages. There are many fairly priced drip coffee brands, and you don't need to splurge for this mixture, but you absolutely can. And if the coffee you have is on the acidic side, add the tiny amount of salt we suggest to offset it. Chicory is available in many health food stores and upscale groceries, and it's available online. Some vendors sell pre-mixed coffee and chicory blends, which work great, but this recipe allows you to experiment with the ratios once you get used to the flavor. If you prefer a milky coffee, pour equal parts of Caf Noir and the scalded milk of your choice into your cup for traditional New Orleans-style Cafeole. Alternatively, add half and half to taste. Number 1. Cold brew coffee. Cold brew is not exactly the same as iced coffee, though it's often served chilled and over ice. Instead of using hot water, cold brew is made by steeping ground coffee beans in water. There's no special machine or equipment required, and it's incredibly easy to make at home. While the method does produce a great tasting cup of coffee, it takes longer, about 12 hours, so you will need to plan ahead. This simple brewing method produces a richer, sweeter flavor with the true taste of coffee beans. It's almost as concentrated as espresso, but without the bitter taste or high acidity of hot brewed coffee. Freshly ground coffee beans and cold or room temperature water are the only ingredients needed. You will also need a vessel to brew in, a lid or plastic wrap, something to stir it with, for example, long spoon or a chopstick, etc., and a way to filter it. There are cold brew coffee makers explicitly designed for this method. If you prefer, a French press works well, though any medium-sized glass container will do. Begin with 4 cups of filtered water and 1 cup of ground coffee. It will produce 4 cups, or 6 servings of coffee. You can make a larger or smaller batch if you like, simply keep the ratio 4-to-1. So, what do you think? What do you think of this look at the drink recipes that you can go and do in your own home to spice up what you've been drinking lately? Are you already tempted to go out and try some of these drinks? Have you already had some of the cafe drinks that are on this list? Or do you have another that you'd love to recommend to us? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.